Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers as we talk Seahawks football. Seahawks fans, welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with Keith Myers. We're talking Seahawks football. We are facing the New Orleans Saints on Monday Night Football this coming week.
Clearly, you're excited about it, Bill. Since you're not.
I'm not all the way here.
Yeah,
I am. I swear I am. So the Saints come into town. They had a bye week last week. We lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we're just going to talk about expectations, what we think of the Saints coming in, where the Seahawks are at 2-4, what it all means, and what we expect on Monday night. So welcome in.
Yeah. This is a big game for Seattle. They're already behind. They're, 2-4. Their season's kind of on the brink of getting away from them, or to the point where even if, they get Wilson back and they go on a run, if they lose this game and the next one, it'll be too little too late. And that's what happens when you're starting quarterback. It's that you need your backup to come in and at least keep you afloat. We were never expecting Geno to come in and, rattle off 5 wins in a row, but they lost last week. They need to win here. And if they don't win here, then the Jacksonville game becomes a must win or the season's over. And it really comes down to that. Like they're in a precarious position and they need to step up and perform.
Yeah, it is kind of precarious. I mean, it feels that way. And we had a couple shows this week where we talked about that a little bit. And, it's an interesting time because at 2-4, for me, now a lot of fans kind of get amped up a little bit. They throw out a lot of stuff, so is it time to move on from Wilson? Does he even want to stay anymore? Pete Carroll needs to go. John Schneider's done a terrible job with the last 15 drafts. I mean, just everything, right? And at 2-4, I guess you expect that. For me, I kind of have the opposite effect. I kind of relax a little bit. I let the season kind of come to me. I know that it's not going exactly the way I wanted it to, but it's not necessarily over yet. A lot of things can happen in the NFL. A lot of things can happen with this team. It can catch fire. Maybe the running game that started up last week continues this week. We just don't know. So you just kind of have to let things play out a little bit. And I think where you said this is a really important week. Next week as well with Jacksonville Jaguars is also important because those are 2 games that Seattle, at least on paper, has a really good chance to take. This one's going to be the tougher of the 2, but it's at home and you'd expect them to kind of want to take care of business. And I do in a certain way. However, to me, it's still a toss-up type of game just because of the way the season's gone so far.
Yeah. I mean, this idea that they have to win doesn't mean that they're going to. I mean, this is a tough game against a good team, a well-coached team, a team that's flawed in some ways, and that's why they're beatable. But they've still got considerable talent and good coaching, and that is, that's a recipe for winning. And so Seattle's gonna have their work cut out for them in this game, but it's not impossible. This isn't like they're going in and expecting to lose. It's a winnable game.
Yeah, this thing would
play well to do it.
Yeah, this thing would be set up, I think, really well if Russell Wilson was here as the quarterback because of the way the Saints are set up, both offensively and defensively. Now with Geno Smith as quarterback, it's kind of the opposite of what you want it to be. Less acute passing where we really need it, and we're going to want to rely on the run game, and that's where the Saints do a really good job defending the run. So something's got to give there. I think it comes down to which team are we going to see in this game? Are we going to see the team that came out in the third quarter against the Pittsburgh Steelers and kind of blew me away a little bit with their attitude and the way that they really kind of actually seemed like they wanted the game. And for the first time in a couple of weeks, where it was just like there was a little bit of urgency there. And I'd like to see that, regardless of wins or losses right now. I want to see that sort of attitude thing kind of come through, because to not have that at all makes you kind of feel hopeless. I think as a fan, when you see the team is also kind of hopeless, but when you see them really playing hard, you can take that loss if it's really a hard fought game. And I think they give that to the Pittsburgh Steelers, at least in the second half.
Yeah. I mean, they did. They came from 14 points down, forced it into overtime, played pretty well on both sides of the ball. There, at least in the third quarter, Pittsburgh made some adjustments defensively, which took away the running game, and that was kind of it for Seattle's offense. But at least in the third quarter and entering the fourth, it was a team where the Seattle looked like the better team. And if they can come out with that kind of intensity, that kind of game plan, and that kind of execution, they can beat a team like New Orleans. They, could have won last week.
Yeah.
They should definitely beat a team like Jacksonville a week from now.
And when you take a look at New Orleans as well, their offense has some special players in it, but they're not really well put together as an overall offensive unit. They kind of remind me a little bit of the Pittsburgh Steelers in that sense, in that they're really kind of a bottom half of the NFL type of an offense as they're currently constructed. Jameis Winston comes in. He's actually done a fairly decent job for them. 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 108 passer rating overall. Leads the NFL but with 8 touchdowns under pressure.
I say he's only thrown for 892 yards.
Yeah, right. So so they're not really throwing the ball very much.
Yeah,
and he's only completing 60% of his passes.
So, and that's in 5 games. And so Russell Wilson played 4.5 games. So he played 4 full games and then a half of the 5th game before the finger injury knocked him out. And just as a comparison, Winston through 5 games has just under 900 yards, and Wilson has just under 1,200 yards. So. Yes. Right there, this is not a prolific passing offense.
No,
but
it is somewhat efficient.
It is
in the way that it operates, and then its run game is a little bit better. They've still got Alvin Kamara there. They don't have a lot behind him, so if he's going to go all game, that might be a little tough for him. But Seattle hasn't been great at defending the run this year.
Do you know who their second leading rusher is?
Is it Winston?
It's Jameis Winston, their quarterback. He's at 86 yards on 20 attempts.
And I was thinking it was, in my head, I wanted to say, what's the other kid's name?
Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill.
He's third.
He just hasn't been getting a lot of opportunities this year. It's been interesting. But the defense is kind of where it's at for them. They haven't been getting to the quarterback, so the pressure hasn't been coming up front, and they have been giving up a few pass plays on the back end, but they do everything fairly well, and they really defend the run excellent. I think they're second or third in the NFL defending the run. So they're going to take that away from you. They're going to certainly try to take that away from the Seahawks, make Seattle a one-dimensional team. You hear about this all the time. We talk about it a lot with how teams want to defend Russell Wilson. And it's hard to do, but it's going to be interesting because of the question marks with Seattle's running backs right now. It's Chris Carson's out. We know that for sure. Collins was injured. We don't know exactly where he's at status-wise, if he's ready to go on Monday or not. Rashad Penny is supposed to come in.
Yep.
And be fully ready to go.
They won't make a roster move and make that official until Friday, but that's supposed to happen this week. And the extra day is good for Collins because he's got that hip injury, and if he has a chance to get back, that extra day will help him get back. But if he doesn't, he's there. Has been kept on the roster. He's being given a chance. If he's healthy and he goes, he has to come in and
blow the doors off. I mean, come on, right? He needs to come in and have a game.
Yep.
Have a game. So So there's that. And we've also got Dallas and Homer. Homer's actually impressed me a little bit more this year with limited attempts.
I mean, as a runner, he's great on the outside. It's the same problem that he's had since he was a rookie year. If you can get him into space on the outside, his quickness is incredible, but he just isn't a tough runner up the middle, but he's great as a receiver and he does good things. He has actually impressed more this year. He's been a little bit more dynamic and a less just, I don't know, I wouldn't say plotting, but it's just sometimes it felt like he was playing in slow motion.
Yeah. It was kind of like David Moore last year returning kicks. It's like, I never saw a guy move so much and actually move on the field so little. Like he just seemed like he was churning in the same spot. And I noticed that
hasn't been the case this year. Like he's looked more explosive, and it just maybe the game's just slowed down for him, and he's just really comfortable.
I think he's actually got a little extra space, just that little extra step of space when he initially gets the ball. I think is what he actually needs, and I think he's been getting that by virtue of the way that our blocking scheme is set up and the scheme itself, the outside zone stretch stuff. Just giving him that little extra space, I think, is giving him a little bit more momentum. I think it's really hard to start him when he's crowded in a box. It's just hard for him to go from 0 to 60 immediately. Mm-hmm. So what do you expect against their really decent run defense and our run game, which we sort of kind of established a little bit last week? Is there any possible way we can keep that momentum going this week?
I think we can. It really going to come down to is who's the back running the ball. If it falls on Homer and Dallas, I think the Seahawks offense is in trouble. If Penny gets going, I mean he's healthy, he should be fresh. He has only had 2 carries all year because of his injury, and then or if Collins comes back and is able to go, like then they should be able to get some yards here and there. I mean, they're not just going to run the ball and run it and run it and run it. You're going to have to get some yards through the air, but they can definitely take the pressure off Geno Smith by running it effectively. And I think they can. It's not as easy as last week, but they'll still be able to get some yards. But it's going to be tough if they're down to their 4th and 5th string running backs to try and get it done.
So let's go into the other side. Let's talk about Seattle's defense. Which I just still haven't quite figured out, but they did some things schematically last game that seemed to help a little bit. But it's hard to tell because we played Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh came into the game ranked 27th overall on offense, and in a whole bunch of categories, in the mid to low 20s. And so they just weren't that good. And, here we are, and I saw the media quite a bit patting ourselves on the back about improving on explosive plays. For example, like Pete Carroll threw out, well, we did better on explosive plays. We only allowed 2. Well, yeah, you allowed 2 against the team that allows or has the fewest explosive plays on offense.
I mean,
in the NFL.
Roethlisberger just doesn't throw the ball down the field anymore.
Right. So now in this game, Jameis Winston, he does have a few, he has a good arm. But he hasn't been getting a lot of opportunities, 60% completion. They want to be able to run the ball, control the clock, make sure their defense has opportunities to take the ball away. They've been getting some interceptions this year. I think they're 2nd or 3rd in the NFL in interceptions.
Yeah, okay. So we know Seattle has 2 interceptions so far, both of them by Diggs. Do you know how many that the Saints have?
I'll just say 4?
9.
What?
They have 9 interceptions.
Oh my gosh. That's 2 a game.
Yeah.
Darn near.
Yeah.
That's no, and when you combine that with the fact that they're not getting a lot of pressure, I think they're 27th or 28th in the NFL in sacks. They only have 8 over 5 games, and then pressure wise and so forth, just haven't been getting it done.
They don't have a lot of tackles for loss either, so it's not like they're getting upfield.
Okay, so you combine that with the fact they're getting all of the interceptions. How are they doing that? They just have really good defensive backs.
I couldn't tell you because you typically get interceptions by attacking the quarterback, forcing them to throw when they don't want to. before a guy, gets out of his break and that kind of stuff, or getting him to throw off his back foot. And they're not really getting pressure on the quarterback. So either they're fooling people, or they've just been really lucky in terms of getting the right play call against the right play call. And
they've been getting some opportunities too, because when you're third against the run, they allow 79 yards a game. The average in the NFL is 112. Mm-hmm. When you do that, you are making teams one dimensional. They're going to throw a little bit more at you, and that's just more opportunities. Mm-hmm. And then their defensive backs are pretty decent. They're third in defense and points allowed as well at 18.2. So they're doing a good job. Their red zone efficiency is really good. They are 24th in allowing 275 yards passing per game, but that's just because they're forcing teams to pass a lot. They're playing with the lead and all that kind of stuff. What else?
So we're looking at their defense, and this is one of those things that I found fascinating, and it tells you a little bit about how little teams are running on you, because when you start throwing, right, some of the plays end in either somebody running out of bounds or an incomplete. So the plays happen without tackles, where in a running team is going to force the opposing team to make a lot of tackles. The leading tackler on the Saints has 38 tackles. That's Demario Davis. The leading tackle for the Seahawks is Bobby Wagner, of course, with 72.
Yeah.
So 38, 72. There are 5 Seahawks that have 38 or more tackles.
Interesting.
So, I mean, teams can run on Seattle. Teams do not run on the Saints.
I watched the Saints. I can't even remember the game now. I watched an early game, and it might have been the Green Bay game. It was the Green Bay game where they beat Green Bay in their opener. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I've completely underestimated the New Orleans Saints in my preseason kind of prognostications, and thinking that they had to completely rebuild. They were moving on from Drew Brees, et cetera. And they looked really solid on defense. I mean, I was kind of like, I was projecting, okay, the Seahawks are going to have to face this defense at some point, and that's going to be a real uphill battle. And then now it's without Russell Wilson. And so how do we outscore this team? How do we win? What's the formula for scoring more points, holding the ball longer, and wearing this team down?
Well, I mean, we saw it in the third quarter last year. It's getting, yes, this team is hard to run on, but Seattle's running game is designed in its schematics to be able to get yards. You're not going to run every down and get yards, but you can run here and there. You can mix things in, and you can get that going. And they need to get some running yards, because it allows them to do more in the passing game and make it simple for Geno. If they have to drop back and throw all the time, that's not a recipe that's for success for Seattle, because then that makes it really complex and hard for Geno, and you don't want that. He's your backup quarterback. It
does seem like, if you can take the run game that's semi-effective, and also the short passing game, the quick tempo stuff, crossing routes, all that kind of stuff, it seems like that would be complementary for Geno, where he can kind of handle that. Now, if you're going to put the ball in his hand for a while and expect him to throw downfield, I think those opportunities will be there if that other stuff works. Yeah. If it doesn't work and they're forcing him to be the guy, I think they can take that away. So it's really imperative that Seattle tries to run the ball, tries to run it effectively, and also the short passing game is kind of effective, so that we can take those shots, because they aren't getting to the quarterback. So we know Geno can probably have some time to go through his progressions and reads, and we've seen that he can get the ball downfield, 20, 25 yards when he needs to, but he needs to have the space to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at what Pittsburgh did in that game, is they were really worried about Metcalf and Lockett, and they put 2 safeties back, and they took away the long ball and just said, you are not going to throw it long. And
they weren't going to throw it long anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean,
weird.
Well, you've got two of the best, deep ball catchers in the game. So I can understand them wanting to protect against those particular players. But when they got the offense going is when they started running against that. And it forced the Steelers to bring one of those safeties up to the line of scrimmage to stop the run. But when they did that, that's when you should start taking your shots, right? You got one-on-one coverage on the outside. You got to exploit it. And instead, it just led to a whole bunch of sacks. And the Seahawks with Geno in there could not take advantage of that new look. And that the Saints watching that tape goes, well, that's what we're going to do. So they're going to come out with a single high safety and an extra guy in the box to stop the run. And it's going to be up to the Seahawks and Geno to get them out of that defense by completing some passes, getting the ball to Metcalf and letting him do his thing. The same with Lockett. So if they can do that and they can get that safety out of the box, then you start running it, right? And so at this point, you're dictating what they're doing. And so it's like, you want to stay up close to the line of scrimmage? Well, we'll beat that. You want to drop back and cover because you're worried about Metcalf? Okay, well, we'll run on you. And that's what this offense is built around. That's what Shane Waldron has designed and wants. It hasn't really completely come to fruition because of Wilson's desire to throw the long ball and wanting to generate explosive plays, and then his injury and Geno's inability to throw the long ball and generate explosive plays. So, right. But we'll see. I mean, it's designed to do that. They have the schematic stuff, and they have the weapons around Geno to make it happen. It's just a matter of, is he capable of making it happen? And we don't know. We'll find out.
Speaking of quarterbacks, the Seahawks claimed Jacob Eason off waivers from the Indianapolis Colts this afternoon. So that'll be interesting to follow long term to see if he might settle in as being either the number 3 or number 2 guy. We'll see how Geno Smith does.
What happened to Jake Luton? Is he still on the roster?
He's still on the roster right now. So everyone's on the roster, including Etling, is still back on the practice squad as well. So there'll be some moves going on in the next day or two, but they did make it official that Jacob Eason is on the 53, and he has to be. He was claimed off waivers. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see what that means.
So that gives them 4 quarterbacks on the 53.
And it gives them about 3 weeks to figure this out until the bye.
Well, I guess actually
at the quarterback position.
Wilson's not on the 53, so they have 3 quarterbacks on the 53. You've got
and his practice squad guy,
Geno, Luton, and Easton, and then Edling's on the practice squad. So, but because Wilson's on IR,
and so the Saints have a trio of rookies that are doing really well. Peyton Turner, edge rusher, strong, fast, shifty, has got 1 sack, but he's got 9 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 5 hurries, 3 quarterback hits. He's a guy that we should probably pay attention to. Pete Werner is a linebacker that I really liked out of Ohio State in the draft. I thought he could have been a good 3rd, 4th round candidate. But we've spent some high picks on linebackers lately, so he was kind of off the board, but he's kind of an interesting guy. And then Paulson Adebo was one of those corners that I thought Seattle would have their eye on there in the 2nd round, maybe going into the 3rd if they fell back a little bit. And, he's 3rd on the team in tackles with 23, 2 pass defense, a guy that I wouldn't mind on the Seahawks roster right now. Yeah.
2 interceptions.
He's got 2 interceptions too. Oh, wow. I didn't have that written down. So that even is more impressive. It's just one of those things where you just, it's like we went through that draft so many different times and just kind of knew those players in those first 4 or 5 rounds pretty well. And he would have just been an excellent fit.
He would have
for Seattle, but let's see what Trey Brown turns into. I think he's going to get another opportunity here.
He's going to, and he deserves it. He played well, and at one point made a tackle that felt like a game-saving tackle, and then it ended up not coming. The offense didn't respond in the way that it needed to. But the he played well. He's earned more opportunities. He's earned more chances.
Yeah, he had 40 snaps and earned over like 70, close to 75, I think, Pro Football Focus grade in that game.
That was his first real action in the NFL.
Yeah, which is really solid. And I was impressed just by the way that he came in. The nature of the way that he wanted to play was aggressive, and you'd like to see that right out of the gate. That's awesome for his first experience out there. So,
actually, what was most impressive when I went back and kind of watched the tape was that the big flaw in his game, the really bad habit that made me cringe watching him play. He was more than handsy. He was grabby. He was pulley. Because the NFL's so hard on cornerbacks, right? They can't breathe on a wide receiver. It's a penalty. And every single play that you watched for him in college was something that could have been called as pass interference or holding in the NFL. Every play. And I was like, I don't know if he can get out of that. And there were a few plays that I thought he could have been called for, but they were close. But there were a bunch of plays where he just played well, played strong.
Interesting. And, a lot of that from college has got to be coached that way.
It might be, or it might just be that, yes, but it's
or he never learned any other way.
Or he did it because he knew he could get away with it. And now he's not doing it. Yeah. Now he's not doing it because he knows he'll get called. But he's still managing to be successful without it. And that's the important part. That was the part that I didn't know. Like, could he continue to play at a high level as a cover corner without being handsy? Because there was no evidence of that in his college tape. And from what I saw in, this game against Pittsburgh, there's evidence of it in his pro tape because he did it. He was able to cover, players without holding them on every play. And so now we have evidence that we didn't have before, which is good to know.
All right. Prediction time.
Uh-oh.
The Seahawks really struggled last week in the first half, really brought it back in the third quarter. It really kind of depends on which offense shows up in this game. Dictates how many points. I mean, they scored 20 points against a fairly pedestrian Pittsburgh defense. I'm not pedestrian, but top 15-ish, but wasn't doing really anything special. I didn't think. They did have 5 sacks, put some pressures on in the game, but we ran the ball effectively, to kind of counter that and so forth. So in this game, it's hard because Geno Smith is not Russell Wilson. And I think Russell Wilson would give them a clear advantage in this game. And now it's almost neutral for me, like even below neutral. Yeah. Like we're really going to have to fight an uphill battle to get this game. Depends on how bad they want it. And even that might not be enough. We'll just have to wait and see. But give me your thoughts.
I say, well, just in what you were saying, Geno and Wilson are so very different quarterbacks, despite the fact that, you look at them, they both throw well on the run, and they're
both in the same system.
Yeah, right. and they're both guys that like to extend plays if they can. But Geno's a guy that's going to dink and dunk and pick up the stuff underneath and try to extend drives by getting a whole bunch of little tiny 4 or 5 yard gains. Or Wilson, I mean, he'll take some of that, but mostly he wants to go deep. He wants to generate explosives, and he can. He's really good at it. This is a team, the Saints, that you beat by connecting on those explosive plays, because they're going to make it hard for you to dink and dunk them into long drives. But they're susceptible to some explosive plays over the top, and the Seahawks just don't have the quarterback to do that. They've got the receivers to do it. Yeah. And maybe this is one of those times when you take some chances with Geno and just let him fling it. Yeah, just say
like 3 or 4 times a game. Just,
yeah, you've got the guys. They're going to be out there. They're going to be open. Just get it out near them.
Especially with DCAP. I think you could say to Geno, listen, you're going to have 3 opportunities in this game to go deep with DK. Go ahead and let it go. And
just let it go.
We'll let DK go climb and
if it's out. If it's an interception, then it's an arm punt.
And if you're going to throw it 45 yards,
exactly. And we're not screwing up the defense because of field position or any of that, but the opportunity,
just like we talked about taking some chances on the defensive side of the ball in the last week or two. now it's time to start taking a few chances on the offensive side of the ball.
Absolutely.
We're 2-4. It is what it is. You're going to have to take some chances to win some games.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're just going to lose by attrition. So, okay. So get back to your kind of prediction thought train.
No, I was going on down that thought train, hoping that you'd forget. That was my. Do
you want me to go first?
Prediction.
Okay, I'll go first. I'll go first.
I don't really want to predict this game because
I don't even want to think about it. I'm just going to come out with a score.
Honestly, I get beat on enough by everyone on YouTube saying I'm negative, so I don't really want to throw my prediction out there because it's not a positive one. But I will go first just because it's there. I think Seattle's going to have a hard time scoring. I think the Saints are going to have a hard time scoring. This is going to be a low scoring game, but I just think the Saints defense is good enough against it's a mediocre Seahawk offense without Wilson. It was great. It was the best offense in the NFL by many different measures with Wilson.
It's still number 6 in DVOA on offense.
Yeah. That's a big drop in 1 week.
Yes,
from
right.
being
it's 5 quarters without Russell Wilson, or however many quarters so far.
Yeah, and so they've gone from 1 to 6 in 6 quarters because it's not the same. And a really good defense. Seattle's offense isn't great. That's not a good combination. The Saints' offense isn't great, but Seattle's defense is struggling. To be nice. I just think that it just lines up in a way that it just doesn't favor Seattle. And even being at home, I'm not willing to give it to them. I'm thinking this game ends up 2017 New Orleans.
Wow. You and I were thinking almost the exact same way. And I'm going to tell you how. So I was counting the field goals like that Seattle would have in this game. So I was going, okay, 3, 6, 9, 12. Okay, so 4 field goals and then a touchdown. So that's 19. So that's my prediction. 19 Seahawks, Saints 13. We get this game. It's Monday night. It's at home. The Seahawks defense is interesting, but when you look at it, we're evenly matched with their offense. We're number 22 in DVOA on defense. They're not great. They are, a middling 20s type of an offense. So I think that we can neutralize that. The question is, can Geno Smith orchestrate enough of our offense with some dynamic playmakers that we do have around him, and Rashad Penny maybe coming back and giving the team a spark? Who knows? But if it happens, if Rashad Penny comes in and gives the spark, then my 19 goes up. But if everything's kind of the way that we've been playing, I'm going to say 19-13. And the Seahawks surprise on defense and maybe generate a turnover or two.
I mean, in your opinion, is the Saints offense significantly better than Pittsburgh's?
No, just in a couple players, like Alvin Kamara, obviously, right?
I think it is better. I don't think
but Michael Johnson, better. Is it Michael Johnson that's out? Their wide receiver. I can't remember his name. Their big wide receiver guy is out of this game. And I just think that they're somewhat, and they don't have really a backup running back situation, so to speak. Taysom Hill's their guy. I just think that, it's about like Pittsburgh. You got a quarterback that's almost like Ben Roethlisberger and his effectiveness right now, 60% completion percentage. He's got a little bit more, a few more touchdowns than interception ratio, which gives Jameis Winston the advantage there. But it's not a huge advantage. So I'm thinking that's going to be approaching about the same. So my thought process is Seattle's offense better than New Orleans defense for one game? And no, the answer probably is no. There's probably 7 out of 10 times New Orleans is going to win this game just from their defense. But I'm saying it's Monday night and stuff happens, and I think Seattle gets this game. I think they really want it too. They came out with the Pittsburgh thing in the third quarter, kind of unified that team a little bit, I think, and they come out the same way. That's just me.
So you think Deontay Harris, is that the wide receiver?
Deontay Harris is the guy, their leading receiver right now. Yeah. I think he's got like 300 yards of receiving yards right now. But the other guy,
because he's questionable right now, but he's
Michael Thomas is missing.
He's out for the year.
Yeah. And so Marquise Galloway and Deontay Harris.
Yep.
And Kenny Stills is there. Harris leads the team with 236 receiving yards on 12 catches. Callaway has 13 receptions for 222 yards. But that's it. That's really their offense. They've got tight ends, Juwan Johnson, Adam Troutman, that are, still coming along. Troutman's a rookie.
I mean, if Alvin Kamara gets hurt at some point in the season, this offense is going to struggle.
And even now, Kamara is struggling a little bit. He leads the team with 368 yards rushing, but has 15 receptions, but only 113 yards off those receptions. So really not as productive as he has been.
Only averaging 3.9 yards per carry because teams are keying on him.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, if it's an issue for them, and if Deontay Harris can't go, I think he's expected to play. But if he can't go, so then you're looking at Callaway and Kenny Stills as really the only wide receivers.
Which is not a threat. It's just really, that's a plodding offense at that point. And I think it's going to be somewhat plodding. And I think against Seattle's defense, I think Seattle is, again, it's one of those games, and we talked about it before the Pittsburgh game. It's a game, an opportunity to kind of get right, where you kind of show out, you're able to do some stuff, you're able to have some effectiveness in stopping the run and defending the pass. I just feel good about this game. I don't know why. We're 2-4. It's like the season could really go from here. You lose the next two games, we're having a completely different conversation about.
See, you're starting to convince me. You're starting to convince me because I'm looking at this offense a little closer at the players that are involved. And you're right. Like you key on Kamara because there's just not a lot else. They have the 10th. They have the 10th best running offense in the NFL, 10th, and that's where they're at. But passing, they're 31st. They are really good on third down efficiency. They're 10th in the NFL. They're first in red zone efficiency. Yeah. So they, but they're 28th in points, or 11th in points, but 28th overall in total yardage. So their defense, those interceptions you talked about, are helping them flip the fields and have shorter fields to operate on, so thereby increasing their red zone efficiencies. Well, and then you look at that. So if your defense is giving you a lot of short fields, you can score points without having to rack up a lot of yards. And is that a case where the offense isn't good enough to have had more yards, or is it just that they haven't needed to because they keep getting short fields? In 5 games and you've got 9 interceptions and a fumble recovery. They've had 10. They haven't had to yet. Yeah. So we don't know. We don't know if they were pressed into service, if they could march down the field consistently for 5-6 drives in a game. They haven't done it. We'll see. Seattle's in the same boat. Seattle's in the same boat with a new quarterback in Geno Smith. Can we consistently march down the field and score? It hasn't appeared that they can consistently. In a game and a half with Geno, they had one really good drive against the Rams and the 2 in the third quarter against Pittsburgh. And the rest of the time, it hasn't been a good offense. It just hasn't. And now Collins might be out. We're missing Carson, so just a lot of things to overcome for Seattle. It's just one of those things, but it's not like they don't face these things all the time. And I think that they just need to step up. Next man up, it happens to be Penny. Let's go see what we've got in Penny. It's time to ride that rock because we've been waiting for him. We've been waiting forever. And I'm sure that he's impatient too. Like he wants to go out there and perform. Let's let him. Yeah. He's got to give him a chance. He's got to take this chance and do something with it because it's probably his last one. At least in Seattle it is. Okay. I think that's it. Yeah, let's wrap this up. Okay.
Follow Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. I'm at NW Seahawks. The show is at Hawks Playbook on Twitter. SeahawksPlaybook.com is our website. You can find us on your favorite podcast platforms and YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. So until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk. Keith is at Myers NFL. And the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.